Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Rich Stone, the founder and head roaster of Memoirs Coffee Roasters out of Knoxville, Tennessee. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, Caffeinated crew? Today I'm joined by Rich, the founder and head roaster of Memoirs Coffee out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Rich, how are you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. Trying to get caffeinated here this morning.
I'm on that train with you. I think we might be seated right next to each other in the same car because I think I have to catch up. You said you have 3 mugs over there.
Yeah, and I've had 2 already, so. But I need 2 to make a pot of coffee. Like, I need 2 coffees to get more coffee, so.
Just to drag yourself to get to the more caffeine, yeah.
Right.
Mine is, I do a V60 for every cup that I do for the most part. So mine takes like quite a bit of effort to get the first one.
Yeah, I'm typically a V60 guy myself on a daily basis. I typically use the large one, the 03 size plastic one. But I like a really bold, really strong cup of coffee in the morning. So
nice. What ratio do you use?
So I use typically about 35 grams in a 03.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of coffee.
Yeah. I like to chew it when I drink it too. You know, it's a meal and a drink all together.
So you do
kind of like
a 14-to-1
jet fuel and a weed whacker is what we call that here.
I'm very pretentious with my recipe. I just do the James Hoffman one because James Hoffman is like the gold standard of third wave coffee, I guess. So
yeah,
it's at least the right direction.
Yeah, he's definitely a smart guy. I enjoy his videos and stuff. I just like it when you see like the coffee kids like fight, like the enthusiasts fight over like Hoffman and other people, and I'm like, guys, it's just about they're giving you a standard to make a decent cup of coffee. Like, there's no right or wrong if you shift something a certain way. If you like it, that's the important part, you know? So,
yeah, there's no standard really practice. It's just you kind of get where, like, it's a starting point and then you can branch out. Yeah, that's
right.
They're teachers. What do teachers do?
Yeah. It's kind of like, the Christopher Walken Saturday Night Live skit. I put my pants on just like you do. Just what I do, I make gold records, you know? So, it's that same thought, like that same.
Yes. But when I put my pants on, I make gold records. Yeah, well, let's talk about what we're drinking. What do you have over there?
So I've got our summer release. I don't know if it's made it to you yet, but I know it's in Montreal as of this morning.
Okay, great.
So I'm drinking a Costa Rica. It's our summer release. And it's a termico process, which is a newer experimental process, which is really cool. This one's it's a wild card, and so I believe I sent you this one. The flavor notes is pink grapefruit zest, raspberry yogurt, and butterscotch. As wild as that sounds.
Nice. Yeah, that's right up my alley.
It's definitely my lightest roast I've ever done. I'm typically more in the medium to light, medium to dark, depending on the origin, what just really represents that coffee being the best.
Right. Is the taste of coffee in your area, is it more of the traditional style? Is that also kind of what leans your roasting profiles?
So in Knoxville in general, you kind of have, it's kind of like split. So you have your old school, medium to dark, just traditional old school roast profiles. We have a couple companies too. I won't name drop them or nothing, but it's kind of like a division, So it's like you kind of have your like cash grab coffee companies.
Yep.
It's more selling you a brand, not so much coffee. I would say insert specialty coffee shop in Pinterest, and what you would get is what you would get, so, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've actually tried to like bring the coffee culture into Knoxville a lot stronger. There's not really a lot of coffee culture based shops here, but there is definitely a want. The community has been going pretty wild over learning so much more into coffee and flavors and things. And like we do classes every month at a place called Capybara Coffee. It's really good friends of mine. It's a couple from Brazil, and they brought the Brazilian specialty coffee culture to Knoxville.
Nice.
And so we collaborate together and do classes, and they sell out sometimes less than a day. At the most, 2 days are sold out. So the Knoxville community is definitely excited about learning more and getting deeper into the coffee and the culture behind it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do want to go back to talking about the cuppings, because I saw that you do a lot of those, which really excites me, because I feel like it's the way that you really do learn about coffee is in those kind of scenarios. It's like, what are you tasting? And there's no wrong answers, making it very safe for people to learn.
Right.
But I do want to talk more about that. I'm going to tell you what I'm drinking. I'm excited to try the one that you sent, because that's anything with any kind of weird grapefruit citrus in it, or like I had one that had bergamot in it. That's also kind of in that weird citrus alley.
Yeah.
Very excited about it. I'm drinking one that I just brought back from London, from Manhattan Coffee Roasters. It's called Salma Bermudez. It is a Guatemalan. No, sorry, it's not. It's Colombian. I just read that completely wrong. It's a Colombian coffee.
Sorry.
It is a advanced fermentation, and it's a geisha variety. So a lot of nice kind of jasmine-y, but like understated notes. But there's some mango. There is some like elderflower, so that gentle herbal kind of taste that you get from the geishas, and then a dulce de leche is what is also listed on the bag.
Interesting.
I kind of get that in a caramelly. There is a hit of caramel in there. It's definitely it's a tongue twister. It's a weird coffee, but it's good.
And sometimes you almost get what I find with a lot of Latin coffees that have like that caramel, it's usually in the back of the tongue. Mm-hmm. And it's going to sound weird, but it almost does like a half pipe thing from side to side and along the back of the tongue. That's the best way I can really describe that. Kind of like makes a horseshoe going back and forth, kind of swinging.
It is, and it's weird that you say that, because it does have like, I equate it to a round tasting. Yeah. It's like it tastes round. I don't know if that even makes any sense, but to me, like when I visualize the flavor, it's very interesting.
And that's like even with like certain citrus notes with coffees, either it runs right down the center of the tongue to the back, or you kind of get like we have a Huehue Tenango Guatemalan coffee, and it's the flavor notes is like nutty, chocolate, and citrus, and so you get the nutty and chocolate right up front, but then around the outer edge perimeters of your tongue, you get the light citrus notes.
Yep. I think the map of the tongue is sour, is like kind of on the sides, right? And then like the sweetness is in more the front of the tongue. Mm-hmm. And then, like you said, in the back, you get that more bitter taste, which is why it always stays for so long.
Not all coffee. Some have a really nice clean cup, and it's like it says hello and then takes off too. Mm-hmm. So it depends on the coffee. If you do something like a Pacific Indonesian coffee, a lot of like real earthy forward coffees, you'll get a lot of that kind of stuff typically.
Yeah, like even a Sumatra, if it's roasted. Not overly roasted. If it's like a nice medium, letting that bean speak and then getting out of there. I've had some really clean Sumatras like that, just quick, and it's gone. So yeah.
We've got a natural process one on our website, and it's really bright and fruity. It's got some earthy notes, and it has like a molasses kind of finish.
Oh yeah.
But I've also had some Sumatras where people I don't know if they don't know how to roast them correctly, or they just think it should always be a dark roast. But, I actually enjoy a lot of like those earthy, bold flavors. And so, I always get sad when someone like just burns it all the way, like just crazy. And it's like, you take a sip and it's like old bong water, you know what I mean? Like, why would you do that to me?
Is it just Robusto? Is it just over roasted? That's funny. Those
Mhm.
the 2 times the caffeine coffees, and people realize it's not Arabica at all. It's just really, really burnt Robusto coffee.
Well, that's like the big thing a lot of people in Knoxville I find are learning is they don't realize the darker the roast, the less caffeine. They always thought it was more and more flavor. And I was like, no, you get more body, but you're gonna realize when you're roasting these beans, the sugars and oils are extracting from the bean itself. So a
Hmm.
lighter roast is gonna have more, you know?
Well, I would love to know your kind of. I feel like everybody has that cup, that memorable cup that kind of tilts you over the edge from, your standard traditional coffees into the rabbit hole of kind of third wave or specialty coffee. What was do you have a memorable cup?
I think so. I would say my memorable versus like favorite are two different, but two beautiful cups. So the first thing that really hit me um, was a really medium roasted natural Sidamo Ethiopian coffee. And it was just like pungent blueberry juice. And I
Hmm.
thought to myself, how is there nothing added to this? Like, how can that a bean that's been cooked taste like this, you know? And just like deep blueberry, real juicy on the tongue, real light. And then you get them also kind of like dark cocoa notes in the
Yeah.
backdrop of it that really just complement that juiciness there and kind of gives it that balance. As far as favorite cup, um, there's a Yemen coffee called Red Mocha Haraz.
Mm.
It's a very expensive coffee. I get some for my personal reserve stash once in a while when I'm able to. Um, but it's got like real deep, like tart red wine flavors,
Mm.
dark chocolate, and like this real nice earthy, smooth finish. And the closest that I normally roast on our line that would even represent that is our Ethiopian Guji. I do a medium to light roast on it, so you get a real rounded, tart, dark chocolate, earthy, smooth finish. And so, it's kind of like people that say, "Oh, do you have Kona?" And I'm like, "No, but I have a really nice Colombian coffee that gives it that same nice clean cup that you
Yeah.
like in a Kona." So and then the other thing is a lot of people don't realize Kona only has to be 10% Kona. So majority of the time what you're drinking is Sumatra and Colombian with a little bit of Kona in the background. So I always tell people, what do you typically drink? What profiles do you typically like? And what do you like about coffee? And then I try to find something that I have that's related to those things.
Yeah. I love that idea of kind of guiding people, and
Mhm.
the opening question, what do you usually drink? What do you like? What's your taste? That's, I think, very important for kind of gaining the trust of people, maybe, because it's like you want to know about them, because that tells you a lot when they tell you the type of coffee, and then it shows that you kind of care, that you guide them to the right place. It's great.
Right. And so that's like they'll say, "What is your best?" And I always respond with, "That's preference.
Hmm.
What do you like?" Because we may like different things,
Yeah.
So what I consider the best, you may hate, and vice versa. So it's like specialty is a quality grade of coffee. It just depends what you prefer in your
Hmm.
cup.
And a lot of times, I think people equate price to quality, and that's not
Right.
always like you brought up Kona. Kona is very expensive,
Mhm.
but I think a lot of times people, like you said, it's only 10%. If you had a 100% Kona coffee, that coffee would be like, I don't know,
You
like,
probably look at $60 for like an 8-ounce bag
yeah,
because
it'd be
it's
insane.
it's anywhere from like $40 to $48 depending on what grade, what where you get it from. So it's like I have people ask me, and another one is Jamaica Blue Mountain. They ask me
Hmm.
about, which is another really expensive coffee. And I always say I can get it, but would you pay this for it? And most of the time they're like, "Whoa," and it's
Yeah.
like, I was like, you got to realize it's anywhere from 40 to 50, 60 sometimes depending on the coffee. Before I even put it in a machine, put it in a bag, label anything, it's like I can get it, but will you pay for it? So
Do you want to spend $17 on a cup? Is the
yeah.
$17 a cup of coffee?
I mean, with coffee and prices and stuff, so like Colombia and Brazil are your largest like producing countries and origins for coffee. And so, it is a little bit cheaper typically. So supply and demand plays a big role in that.
Right.
The economy also plays a role in that, just like the stock markets and stuff. Like coffee's prices are a lot like that. Um, there's importers that I've seen where I'll call today and order coffee, and then the next day that shot up $1 or even 50 cents sometimes. So it's just it changes like that. So if you bought, usually when you buy from a pretty large roaster, like the price, you won't see much fluctuation.
Mm-hmm.
At least not like month after month. It might be a year difference because they'll buy a year's crop of what they want at a time.
Right.
So that helps with like kind of price stability there. But yeah, so like price in general, like it depends.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that this Ethiopian coffee is better than this Brazil coffee because it costs $3 more. Like they're both really great coffees. It's just it's a lot easier to get more of this Colombia than it is this Ethiopia due to supply and demand and what they've got.
Right. And shipping goes into it. Coming from Ethiopia as opposed to Colombia, it's a bit of a difference. And like you said, economics play a huge role too. So
yeah,
it's important to realize these kind of variables and how they go into your cup.
And also, some of the most beautiful coffees in the world are some of the most dangerous parts of the world, which also plays another role of getting coffee in and out of the country.
Yep. Yes. Unfortunately, yes. That's extremely true. I would love to know the memoir story.
So memoirs, I've been in the industry 14 years. Started off with Curry Green Mountain Coffee, the little K-Cup company.
Mm-hmm.
Worked my way up there, moved out to California, and I started with a little startup company called Kuju Coffee that was there. And they do kind of like, it's almost like a tea filter with grounds in it, and it's like a pour over a mug, so you could take your coffee camping and have a nice cup of coffee. About 6 months to a year after that, I moved, took a position with Pete's Coffee in California. Learned so much there with that team. And then just the Bay Area in general, there's so much like coffee education centers and roasting co-ops and such a big coffee community where everyone's just diving to help one another and educate one another. And then the pandemic hit and it went wild, wild west out there. And I was kind of like, I've been wanting to do what I did with what I'm doing with Memoirs for a while. And I was finally at a place where I could do it, And so it's kind of weird when the world shuts down. You go, I'm at the height of my career and I'm just going to walk away and do something brand new, like no pressure, right?
Right.
And so the reason we're called Memoirs is the coffee in the bag is the memoir, and we're connecting consumer and origin together. We then take crop price and take 20% on top of that, and it goes back to the farmer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the whole premise there with Memoirs. And so working with these other larger companies, they would do things like build water filtration systems and housing and things for origin, and then also represent that origin's coffee, that farm's coffee, as like an offering. And so, I kind of feel in the industry that the farmer is probably the most either exploited or taken advantage of person in all of the supply chain.
Yep.
And, each part of supply chain, I'm going to say, depending on who and where and the company, probably has its, ups and downs and things that they could work on. But as a whole, I feel like they are the most kind of underpaid, underappreciated for what they do, for everything that goes into making these beautiful coffees. Especially, some of these coffees are from some of the poorest parts of the world. And so not only being in a third world country, but being poor in a third world country,
right.
So this is all they've got. And so for me, it's about taking care of those people and taking care of the farms. Without them, we've got nothing. I'm just a guy with a machine that gets hot and it has a drum in it that spins. So to me, that is the most important. And then also, I'd say people in general, not just in the United States, but when they realize all that goes into that cup of coffee, how many hands have gone into the beans and things, and you're drinking this cup of coffee this morning, there could be anywhere from 100 to 300 people and hands that have gone through that cup of coffee you're drinking, and they all each had their key spot of why to give you that perfect cup. So it's really cool. And I think people really gravitate when they realize, wow, I didn't realize how special this really is. I think some people take for granted, I got this $2, $3, $4 cup of coffee. And, sometimes you might pay $12. It just depends what you're drinking. You have a high release that's a micro lot or something that's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
You may not realize why it's expensive, what goes into it, why it's so special, and I think there's a big group of people that actually want to gravitate and understand that.
Yeah.
And build a community here.
Well, I love hearing that. I tell people all the time, you have no idea how much work goes into this little 300 milliliter cup of coffee. So hearing you talk about all the hands, the idea behind Memoirs, the, respecting the producers, it's just like, to me, that's what keeps me in specialty coffee, is because it feels like a family, basically. Everybody's trying to take care of each other and represent the producers and their product as best as they can. So yeah. I love hearing that the memoir, like the coffee in the bag, is basically the memoir to these farmers. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have a famous quote I say often. I always say, it's not about me and it's not about coffee. It's about bridging the gap between people and bringing them together.
It's great.
And so that's been my thing. Like, I've, being a drummer in hardcore and punk bands these years, like, I always like to be the guy behind the curtain doing the work. I never wanted to be in the spotlight. And I guess you could say it's a humbling thing, but I'm kind of shy. I've always been a shy guy. So like, now that I've had to do memoirs, I have to kind of be more upfront and more, and like, I hate it. Like, I'll sit there and go through like a whole like anxiety. All right, stay calm. This is your focus, and kind of like a pep speech before going on, sometimes. And then other times it's like, I'm just able to, I'm just naturally a people and a talker kind of person. So it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The anxiety is because I'm a drummer too. So I know exactly, you feel hidden behind the kit. And then one time my dad was like, we can all see you. We can all see you back there. I'm like, but in my mind, I feel like I'm not like seen. You know what I mean? There's
right.
Like a
you're just kind of in your zone.
Yeah. But yeah, I love, hearing that. I love hearing people in specialty coffee, the passion. And so, yeah, I have so much respect for what you're doing. Just basically trying to showcase what this beautiful coffee or beautiful product is, and telling the story of the farmers, because like a lot of people don't realize that all of the economics, everything that goes into it, and it just goes very deep. There's so much conversation that we could have today, right now, about all of that would take hours upon hours, and I'm sure people would turn the episode off long before we reach the end of that. But
yeah,
I really just wanted to hear
at this moment, grab yourself a joint and a Snickers bar, and then ride this one out with us, like.
And put on your seatbelt. We're going for a little ride. That's. I really loved hearing when you sent me the info about doing the 20% above, and just really building these sustainable and beneficial relationships with the farmers through the importers, and even direct if possible. Is like, that's what I'm here for. I'm here for that. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
Cupping classes. A big part of the coffee industry as a whole that kind of gets skipped, I think, a lot of times, is education. I've been to like one or two cuppings and thoroughly enjoyed it, because I feel like I learned so much, and you meet a lot of cool people that are in the industry or getting involved, and enthusiasts and stuff. So what pushed you to start doing cupping?
I mean, in Knoxville, like I said, there's not really the scene here isn't cultured, or like I said, it's like a lot of masking. It's we got these white tile walls and these fancy little espresso machines, but there's no depth. Like, they don't go into, hey, this is this is that. It's just like, here's something nice, drink it. That's the cool thing to do. So I wanted to actually say, that's all cool and the aesthetics are nice, whatever, but this is what it's really about, and so being a smaller company, starting off small, it's interesting being an industry veteran and then starting off small. And I almost feel like that old school, like punk rock hardcore vibe, like
Yeah.
we're going to do this, and, someone called AAA, there's about to be a breakdown because here we go, kind of thing. My age is showing there on that one, but I think that was Evergreen Terrace quote.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But anyways, and then I did an interview like we're doing now, and a coffee importer that was working remotely in Knoxville saw it. And then she came out to one of my events, and we met. And then she introduced me to the folks at Capybara, Thiago and Letitia there. And we met and got to talking, and they realized, I saw they had something special and definitely had a lot more, especially on origin side than I did, understanding and seeing the culture and things. And, they went and did SCA training and things, and they are the top-notch standard in this city for standards of brewing and coffee and any kind of drink you could think of. Everything is to the book. And then with my strength being roasting and sourcing and things, it just seemed like where one of us was weak, the other was strong, and it just seemed like a good power team to work together with. And they want to build this coffee community and the culture in Knoxville as well, as much as I do. So you do get some hate from people that aren't into the culture side, and that's, I guess, to be expected. I take it more as a compliment than, a shroud at me. So, and then I invite them, ironically, I'm like, well, if you would like to learn more, here's my card, because I do consulting as well on the side with big and small roasting companies. And so I'm always like, hey, I want to break the walls of the BS and just bring everyone in together. If you want to do your competition corporate capitalist life, that's cool. But it doesn't have to be that way, because when I lived in California, from Southern California all the way up to Washington State, you probably have, and it's probably more, but I'm just going to say you maybe have 3,000 to 4,000 roasters, different roasting companies.
Yep.
And that's millions of people between that, and they are all one massive family. And it's a really beautiful thing going to like an SCA Expo or like a coffee festival, and it's like all these, it's like seeing family. It's like people from all over, but it's like you can't wait to see your buddies that you met from different places and things. And Knoxville doesn't really have that. And so I'm trying to bring that together. We have a lot of great coffee companies here too that are jumping on board and do want to get involved in stuff. So that's really cool to see. I think some of them just didn't know how to approach it or how to make it happen. So I got together with Letitia and Thiago, and I was like, hey, how about we start small and do this? We'll start offering classes at their shop and things like that. I said, eventually we'll expand and maybe get a large space and do it, so we can do larger classes more often. So we started doing it. I think after last night, we've done 4 or 5 classes now. And like I said, they sell out within 2 to 1 day or 1 to 2 days. Like they're sold out. I think this last one was like a matter of hours. Wow. Which was crazy. Like we posted it at like 1 p.m. and I think 8 o'clock that night they were sold out. Like it was crazy, which is awesome, so, and then we get a lot of people that come to our markets and we'll talk coffee at the market and stuff like that. And I always say, take a card. You have any, question, DM me on Instagram, email me, call me even. We'll sit down, have a cup of coffee and just talk coffee, so. I think when you make yourself approachable and you show that you're genuine, people gravitate towards that. Where if I just give you a fancy bag and tell you this is the lifestyle and you look like you're going to be on an Old Navy commercial, people kind of find that cringy, and fake. So I think that's kind of the difference is like, it's not about the aesthetics and stuff. It's about bringing the culture and the people together and understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's a big family to me. I love connecting with people that are passionate about specialty coffee. And I feel like it's so funny that there's so many people from the hardcore world, because that DIY mindset, I think, united a lot of us. And so when it comes to coffee, it's kind of that same idea. It's like we're all surrounding like this thing that we really care about. And so
yeah, it's that's like with punk and hardcore. It's that, not necessarily the big stuff on the radio, but like that old school mindset was you fight for the underdog,
Yeah.
and you stand for your beliefs and you keep fighting for that, and so I'm not so much in hardcore punk musically anymore, but I feel like I'm still keeping that same,
Yeah.
energy going and soul going in what I'm doing with coffee.
Yeah. I feel that so much too. And that's what I like, fighting for the, like, pushing the people that you care about, like, just if they're doing something cool and gassing it up. That's really what I still do. Like, I take that from hardcore as well. So
Yeah.
it's so much fun to see, even in coffee. Well, not to get sidetracked, I did want to ask you the strangest group at the cuppings that you've had so far. You've only done like 5 or 6.
Yeah. In Knoxville, I've done about 5 or 6. Do you mean strange in the coffee we offered for them to try, or do you mean strange in the people in general?
Yeah, I was thinking like if it was like a bachelorette party or something, if they were like
Oh,
wanting to do like a cupping. It's a weird
yeah,
place to
yeah,
do that.
yeah. This cupping class ain't ready for us, that kind of vibe.
Where's the music?
Yeah, yeah. So well, I haven't had those yet, but I would say this that like I feel like a lot of people didn't realize how deep it was going to go,
Hmm.
and so like I had a young lady last night, and we were talking, and she was from Guatemala, and so I could just tell she was humbled by the experience, and like for me, that's what it's about when you can really like connect people to something. Um, and she actually was telling me that she had my Guatemalan coffee and that it made her proud. Like I roasted it in a way that made her proud. I have a very close family friend who has a family farm in Tenango,
Hmm.
and he actually told me coming to the States, he said, a lot of people give me Guatemalan coffee because I'm Guatemalan. And a lot of the times I'm disappointed and I'm almost ashamed to have the name Guatemala on the bag. And, he roasts himself and he's come over to the facility and stuff and checked it out. So he told me, he said, that was the first thing I said. I said, I want to know if it's bad. I want to know if I can change anything.
Hmm.
You are my truest, person to tell me if I'm where I need to be. And he told me, he goes, you made me proud to be from Guatemala. He goes, you really served our coffee well. And
Nice.
so, and even Letitia and Thiago over at Capybara, like they carry our Brazilian offerings. And they told me, I said, 100%, if it wasn't good coffee, we wouldn't sell it here. You really make us proud and you really are doing something special. So like when you can get those kinds of things or feedback, like that's awesome because you're like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm where I need to be on this. Like it kind of like builds your confidence that I'm doing what I need to be doing on this.
Yeah.
And then I worked with Jim Reynolds at Pete's, and so he was Alfred Pete's prodigy, and he actually gave me an email giving a blessing on doing what I'm doing with Memoirs, and it's like if you're trying to create computer software and Steve Jobs or Bill Gates writes you a recommendation email, like you can't go any higher than that,
Mhm.
like that's the standard now. So it's like you can only go up from here.
Yep. That's really great. Once again, showcasing the coffees,
Yeah.
not getting in the way. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll always hide under the water, man.
Well, that's awesome. You mentioned that you're a drummer. I know that you were in Hands to the Forsaken, Cape Coral
Yeah.
hardcore.
Oh yeah.
I think the Florida scene. I literally was just talking to a guy who's in a touring band right now, and he said Florida is still like that's his favorite place for beans and breakdowns because Florida as a whole has been synonymous with hardcore, metalcore. Now it's deathcore. It seems like deathcore is there's just
Yeah,
lots of
that's the big wave right now, like in Lee County, Cape Coral, Fort Myers area. Seems like one in particular, and a guy that was in a band that we used to play with is in a newer band now, and I think they're called Body Snatcher, if I'm not
they're
mistaken.
huge. I just saw
Yeah,
them like
and
a month ago.
yeah, and like you grow up with these guys, and we all go in our different paths and directions in life, and it's just like the guys that are still doing it and becoming successful. You're like, man, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Like um I think there's that difference. Like you see people and you're like, man, that's like, you're proud for them. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad to see they're still doing it and they're getting far with it. And, I think for me, just seeing people happy and passionate and doing what they're passionate about is the coolest thing ever, So, when I first moved to Knoxville, the first person I met here, and they weren't the well-known band at the time. These guys were local at the time. I was trying to find a band to get into. I think I was like 20 years old, somewhere in there. And I was trying to get into the scene in Knoxville. And the first person I meet is Alex Wade of Whitechapel.
Yep.
And they were just a local band. Like, they were local legends, but they were just a local band at this time, And then like a year or two later, they just massively blew up and became what they are now. And ironically, Alex actually cuts my hair now when he's not on tour. So it's still pretty cool, He's kind of fulfilling two passions in life, So that's really cool to see. And those guys are some of the most humble, nicest guys you'll ever meet in your life. Like, super down to earth, super, there's some bands you meet, and I'm sure you probably had this experience. You're like, you look up to, and then you meet them, and then as people, they're just not what you thought they would be, very arrogant or a-holes or ego. And it's like, and then you meet the ones that like, it's funny seeing Whitechapel is like, they have this real deep deathcore kind of vibe. But then you talk to them and they're like the nicest dudes you ever met in your life. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of funny in that sense, but it's also refreshing to see that, that they're human, So I think people put certain people on a pedestal and they don't realize like they're no different than you or I. They're just doing something and got, the opportunity to do it, So.
Yeah, they get to live that passion, especially in that Florida scene was always like, we would have bands come up and it was always, even in like, I was getting into the scene a bit later. So in high school, it would have been like 2006, 7, 8, going to local shows, and we'd have bands from that Florida scene come up, and they, first of all, they moshed harder than anybody else. It was scary. And then they also were like, the breakdowns and everything were just ridiculous always. But it's funny you bring up 7 Angels, 7 Plagues, and I know that you're always wearing this like Poison the Well in all the pictures I see, the Poison the Well shirt. But that sound is like 100% back. I don't know if you've heard like Foreign Hands or See You Space Cowboy or
no. But I saw that they also came back about like right before the pandemic. They did a big show in LA. And I think they still do stuff like they just did Furnace Fest back in, I think, last September.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see the bands from that time period are starting to come back.
I just saw Misery Signals like last week. Yeah.
Yeah.
With what's his name? Is Jeff or Carl, the original singer? But yeah, he's back in the band. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And they only played old stuff.
That's even better because, you look at bands, there's certain bands you're like, man, I wish I would have saw them in this time period. Because like, I love the guys in the band, but, like every time I die, I think about when Hot Damn came out. Like, that was like prime time to see them. I remember seeing them with Converge. And it was an icy winter night. And I remember I was not familiar with driving in the snow and icy roads because I grew up in South Florida. So I remember like being super sketched down the roads to like, just to make it to the show. And that was kind of a cool experience. But like at that time frame, like there's other stuff is great, but it's like, that was when it really kind of hit me, and that's when I was really getting deep involved. Jane Doe had just released by Converge at that time. It's such a killer album. And even to this day, it's like, I think that's one of their most known albums, Recently with them, I just recently got back into them. They do a lot of collaborations with like Chelsea Wolfe and stuff. And I remember I bought the album All We Love We Leave Behind. And I was like, oh, I'm going to finally throw this record in. And I look at it and I'm like, that was almost 10 years ago. I'm like, how long have I been gone? How long have I been asleep in a coma? Like, what happened? And then I see all this other material they've done since then. That's also great. It's just, So I think it's important to have that time for yourself where you do reconnect with what you were and have that feeling, and never forget where you came from, so.
Yeah. Well, Rich, I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. This has been such a great, kind of discussion, because I love hearing people's heart and passion behind why they're in coffee or music or both. But I do really appreciate you joining me. I really hope the best for Memoirs, because you guys have a great mission. Obviously it's being run with the most passion, so I'm super excited to see what happens.
Oh yeah. Appreciate it. It's been nice being here.
Yeah. Thanks again. I just want to know, what is your favorite city for Beans and Breakdowns?
St. Pete. And I think a lot of that is the nostalgia, not necessarily for Beans, but for Breakdowns. That was a place that we went to for a lot of shows or played a lot of shows. For Beans, I'm going to probably say Oakland for me, Oakland, California. There's so many great roasters in the Bay Area. So I'm going to just say Oakland and the Bay Area as a whole has a lot of great killer roasters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those Bay Area roasters historically, but even recently in the past couple of years, I've been and just blown away by the quality of coffee, everywhere I went. So I definitely see that. Well, Rich, again, thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Hopefully you're not too busy. Wow. Looking forward to trying that coffee, and we'll catch up soon.
Yeah, make sure to let me know when it arrives, so I know you made it.
Oh yeah, I'll send lots of pictures and
all right.
I'll have the coffee on one of the episodes later on as well. And I always, as you know, talk about the notes and what I'm tasting. So
yeah,
it'll be fun to be able to give you some feedback too. Super excited.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care.
Hey, you too. See you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Rich for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to check out Memoirs Coffee Roasters on their website. They have all of their coffees available for purchase, and they also have a story behind each one of the coffees that they have available for sale, which is really great and interesting, so be sure to check that out. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can also find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns, or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. This is the last week that you will be able to buy Church of Hardcore tickets, because Church of Hardcore is happening on Sunday, August 21st. So be sure to pick yours up using code BEANS at checkout to receive 50% off your order. Until next week, stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up!